On today's episode of Secrets to Scaling Your E-commerce Brand, I got a chance to chat for the third time. This is the first guest who has ever been on the podcast three times, Chris Shipferlink. We had such a good conversation all around what the M&A market is looking like in 2023. We talked about all of the things that you need to do as a brand before you even think about selling. You guys are not going to want to miss this one. Hey guys, Jordan West back with another episode of Secrets to Scaling Your E-commerce Brand. Today I am joined by a friend, mentor, just all around great guy, Chris Shipferlink. Welcome back. Three times is a charm on the podcast. Welcome back, Chris.
Thanks for having me, man. I always appreciate and I always love being on your podcast, dude. It's always
I
so
think
much. It doesn't feel like a podcast. It feels like we're just having one of our normal conversations that we have.
totally. I mean, like hopefully we won't swear as much as we normally do, but
Have your
Chris and I have this great relationship where we could just really be like, I mean, I didn't even tell you one of my big swearing incidents that I need to tell you about later, but
okay,
we'll do that off the podcast. But Chris, for
okay.
for people who don't know anything about
Yeah.
you or what you're up to these days, just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are an advisory to acquisition, call us a business consulting, lower middle market investment bank. There's a lot of ways to really kind of title what we are, but I think that's a bit of not the issue. It's we do a lot of things. And so as of recently, what we've been doing to simplify, we get involved as early as a business owner will allow us to get involved to help affect and optimize every function of the business backdropped against an exit to make the company a much more valuable asset at the right time it's supposed to go to market.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
go to market now. Go to market now. It's let's figure out when to go to market.
yeah, yeah, totally. I've been thinking about this lately, and I had this little funny kind of thought come to mind. I haven't posted anything about it yet, but my thought was like, if real estate agents or real estate is all about location, 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 M
Yeah.
and A is all about timing, 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 right?
There's no
And
question.
going public, right? Like all of the different steps. It's really about about what time you're going to go to market because
No, it's so true.
right right now, I mean, I don't know actually exactly right now, but I can tell you in the last year and a half, that would not have been the greatest time to go to market. So if you have,
That's right.
you probably should have been chatting with somebody like Chris.
That's right. Well, and that brings up a good point. I mean, and that's part of the reason why we pivoted to the product that we're offering. We've always talked about doing something like this where, we've always said, hey, if a business owner can let us get involved early, we can give the answers to the test a lot earlier. And
Yeah,
then by the time the company does go through a process, it's a stronger business. It's a much more valuable asset. But, the past year and a half has been very difficult for M&A. There's no question. We've seen an upside down credit market. A lot of
yeah,
lower middle market deals get done through credit facilities, debt facilities. Those interest rates have, of course, gone skyrocketing. So it's
yeah,
tough to get capital to purchase. Therefore, business valuations have also come down. There's been a misalignment in terms of how much the seller still wants for the company versus what the buyer is. You have a
mm,
higher, which we won't even get into because I think it's a tired discussion. You have a whole aggregator market that's completely cratered, that was really the ones driving a lot of the demand for at least
yeah,
Amazon centric businesses. That's why you had multiples going where they were going, is because
yeah,
you kind of had a little bit of phantom demand, not really market or asset driven principles. You had more like that phantom demand of, oh, I want it more than this person. And it just
yeah,
drove up valuations. Well, now those are back to what they were pre pandemic, which is like three multiple, three and a half.
yeah,
And so,
yeah,
but even for a really great business, that's the other side of the coin. And, you know, businesses you and I have worked on together, currently still work on,
yeah.
great businesses know it's not time for me to go to market yet.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
still have some growing up to do. And if the market isn't going to give me this, I know when the oceans heal themselves, using more and more analogies, once the oceans heal themselves in the year 18 months from now, and valuations have gone back up, you know, PE funds, capital, they're feeling more confident about the consumer. They're feeling more confident about the future of the
Yeah,
economy. Well,
yeah,
obviously multiples are going to go back up and they're waiting. That's all. There's a lot of
yeah.
that that's happening with really good businesses. not to ramble on about this, but one more point. We've been talking to M&A desk and they have said, they've confirmed we're really getting it from them. I mean, this is the confirmation, which they're saying, hey, it's really difficult for us to find a great business because great businesses don't want to sell right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, totally. Because they know their value, right? They know their
yes,
value and they know that value actually isn't going to be like, they're not going to be able to get that value in the marketplace or be able to sell to somebody or a group that they actually want to sell to.
that's
That's
right.
another one of the things I'm hearing out there too.
That's
Um,
right.
you know, Chris, let's chat about. So I just want to kind of set this up here for a second. So I have bought and sold a few different businesses over the years. Really enjoy that. I love being on the buyer side. That's my favorite side to be on
It's
because
fun.
I love finding this gold within companies.
Yeah.
But very interestingly, you cannot just decide tomorrow to sell your business, right?
Yeah.
You maybe you've got the fundamentals down, but for most people, they cannot decide that. I've got somebody that I'm doing some consulting with right now on that lower end who has just decided now that they want to sell their business, and I'm like, it's not that easy. It's
Yeah.
not like you need to have these foundational things. And so I was kind of hoping that we could dive into a little bit of that, Chris, so that people
Yeah.
can start to get it in the back of their minds what you're looking at when you're
Yeah.
prepping somebody for that next 18 months or so. What exactly are you putting in place so that this is a business that somebody can actually buy?
Yeah, I mean, look, for us and for anything, whether you're on the buyer side or you're on the consulting side, your first and foremost phase is always just analysis. It's a deeper analysis of the business, and you're going through every single function of the company. And to your point, you're going to backdrop or context everything against what is a buyer going to think about this. So, for
Yeah.
instance, what are some of the pillars? What are some of the most important things that I need to work on? And every business is different, but just to kind of highlight in a generalist way, what are the things that a buyer is going to go, wow, I really like that? Well, number one, be a brand. Please be a brand. Don't be a
Yeah.
commodity. And you
Yeah.
and I could riff. That could be a 5 series podcast, episode set of lots of different people talking just about what does it mean to be a brand. I heard it was said perfectly to me once. Being a brand is getting the second conversation with the consumer. I was like, that's a really
Mm,
good way of putting that, like a really good way. And yeah, it's the way the consumer values and views your company. And
yeah.
brand building is so, so, so important. And again, I could go and layer into more detail about that, but just to try and keep it a bit high level, you've got something that's more than just logo and good Pantones. Like you've got real loyalty. You've got real
Yeah.
advocates. It's the net promoter score, right? That you and I have
Yeah.
had lots of conversations about. Like you need to get that thing up, 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 because that
Yeah.
proves
That's
you
right.
have to make a great brand. I am a very, very
Yeah.
good. So that's
Well,
kind of
that NPS,
yeah, go ahead.
I just want to step in there, Chris, because I have some strong thoughts about this as well. So number one, NPS. I'm so glad that you brought that up because that is something that every single time that we onboard a client into Upgrowth Commerce, we're like, are you tracking NPS?
Is
99.9% of
no,
people are not. They're
no.
not tracking NPS, and it's such an incredible. I like. I know it seems kind of lame how we measure NPS. Like it's just a really quick survey, but it actually matters. And you can actually see these trend lines that are very interesting and really does show you, do you have a brand or do you have a product? Right. And
Yeah,
brands to me can sell whatever they want. Right. They
yeah.
can pivot into different areas. Right. Like
They
I
can.
think about one of the brands that we own, Keep Nature Wild. It's like, what do we sell? Well, we all sorts of stuff, right? Like we're really serving our customer with a bunch of different items that all happen to center around keeping nature wild, right? That is what we
Right.
that is what
Well,
we are.
that's your
But we're not a
brand
product
promise.
company.
That's your brand promise. It's part of your
Yeah.
brand story, but you have a brand promise that bleeds into what my brand story really is, what I represent. Who am I at my core? And then from your core, you're doing all of your product development. And then of course, all the marketing around that, kind of flows into brand story, brand promise, product development. So that's a really good segue, by the way. Do you actually have a view of product development? Do you have a roadmap? Let's
Mm,
talk about that for a moment. Do you
yeah.
have any look, you'll hear the basic version. Do you have any IP? Do you have any but let's dig in on what that really means in terms of do you have IP? Do you have utility patents? Because that is gold. But do you have design patents? That's just as good. Do you
Yeah.
have something
Yeah.
that can give an assurance to someone buying the company that I feel protected because I'm buying the future, man. I'm not buying what you've done. So I've got to
Yeah.
all look forward in this way. So if I'm going to look forward in this way, I got to go, well, what are the risk mitigating factors in terms of me achieving a much greater plan than what you achieve? Because that's what I'm buying it for return, right? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, let's look at your product development. We'll look at current product set. Walk me through where you're going with this, though. Where is the product development headed? Give me a roadmap, please. And I can tell you, there are a lot of business owners that we work with, a lot like when you onboard with NPS, give us your roadmap. And it's very far and few between that someone has a fully dedicated roadmap. We sold a direct to consumer stroller company many years ago. We were able to juice the multiple because they had a 3-year roadmap that was highly defendable,
Wow. Wow.
highly defendable with like actual, we've already got IP in motion for 3 of these products and it's going
Yeah.
to launch in 2 years from now. Dude, that is huge, huge,
Yeah.
huge, huge. So
Let's be honest, most companies, right? Most of the brands that you and I, talk to and not necessarily work with, I think that lots of the ones that you and I are working on together really actually do. I mean, you get to help set the foundation, then bring us in on the marketing side, and it's a phenomenal partnership, guys. Just so you know,
it
like
is good. It's great. It's great.
I love
Very
working with
helpful.
Chris, and when I'm ready to sell one of our brands, in the next couple of years,
Good. We're going to do it
I'll be
together,
telling you
man.
who I'm going to.
We're going to do it together. Right.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. So thinking about that product roadmap, guys, the way that I picture a lot of brands out there doing it, and I'm going to tell you guys, I am not immune from this at all on the
Mhm.
product roadmap side, though I don't really have a ton to do with that at our companies. But what I have noticed is that, when we think about the 7 habits, 4 quadrants, the whole idea of urgent, important, right? So the urgent, important seems to always take precedent. And so that happens with our product development as well, right? Instead of putting product development into quadrant 2, which is this beautiful quadrant where we can live from and be calm and actually create these incredible things. And that's not urgent, important, right? That's where product development needs to sit. And so having a 3-year product roadmap isn't just good for potentially selling your business. It's just good for your business,
Period.
right?
Well, that's the other thing too. It's like, we're doing everything from a backdrop of, okay, let's make a more valuable asset, right? Okay,
Yeah,
great. Well, even if you never sold the company, doing all of these things is going to do nothing but just produce more cash flow.
yeah,
It's going to make you wealthier because the company is going to produce more money. It's a real, all of this is just an incredible exercise going through each function, optimizing every function, scoring the function, et cetera. But yeah, so branding, we go through product development. We talk a lot about that. Look, finding good product developers is within reach now. There's a lot of, in the gig economy, there are a lot of enterprise level product developers that came from Unilever, that came from P&G, or middle market, strong, innovation driven companies that have started their
yeah.
own consulting firms. And they don't cost an arm and a leg. I mean, we worked with an
No,
industrial designer on a toy company recently that worked at Hasbro and Mattel and Disney and like had real toy background. And I can tell you, highly affordable. Using someone with that type of experience, highly affordable. It's within reach. And I think a lot of small business owners, that's the other thing is they don't really know where to turn for some of these resources.
totally.
I'm not saying we're some gatekeeper, but yes, we do have those resources, like where we can put
Yeah,
you in touch with someone who is affordable for your company that can produce a very strong, innovative product roadmap for you that rolls up to your brand promise and rolls up to your
yeah,
brand story. So
yeah. Chris, you
yeah.
okay with people getting a hold of you to chat through some of that stuff? Is that okay
Oh
if
gosh.
people
Hey,
get in touch with you?
you know how much I like to talk, man. Bring it on.
Great,
Yeah,
guys. The guy loves to talk, and that's why we're talking on the podcast. I'm like,
that's
hey, Chris,
right.
can you just be quiet and let's get this recording,
It's
okay?
impossible. It's impossible.
Well,
That's right.
it's unfortunately 2 of us here that do the exact same thing. So
Exactly. Exactly. That's right. So
I always know to stretch our calls out even longer,
you
like
have to look, man. It's like you give me your 15-minute calendar. I need like an hour and 15. No, but
yeah, you're like, why are you giving me your 15? That's
what
like,
is this,
we
man?
won't
What
even
is he
get to
talking
talk.
Yeah, we'll get past hello. We'll get past the pleasantries. But so yeah, I mean, look,
Yeah,
and to try and be more succinct about other functions, of course, naturally we're going to go to sales and we're going to go to acquisition channels, marketing,
yeah,
and
yeah,
there's a lot of layers in marketing. Obviously, you've been a very great partner for us in helping us identify some of the pitfalls But what's been really great about utilizing someone like us in our firm to work with someone like yourself, we bring a lot of the data science to the table, and then
Yeah.
you guys know how to. We give some actionable insights. You guys know how to interpret it. I'm thinking about one client that we're working with. We were able to do a lot of digging and kind of scientific data work to present to their team, to present to you. Here's our guiding principles in terms of how we're going to think about CAC and LTV and customer acquisition. And when we go into a new acquisition channel, here's how we're going to think about it. Here's a unit economics around this
Yeah.
particular channel, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we dive into sales channel, of course. I mean, a lot of the folks that you work with are primarily D2C and kind of
Yeah.
single channel, but there is a lot of other channels to get into. Of course, you work with a lot of folks who are Amazon, but there's a lot you can do to have Amazon and your D2C become good partners with one another. And there's ways that you can create Amazon to be an acquisition channel. Walmart
Yeah.
Marketplace, you've got now TikTok shops, which, that's been an interesting endeavor for a lot of folks. And the one of the coolest things I think that's happening right now too is from a niche perspective, there's a lot of new marketplaces that are popping up. Like Michael's is developing a marketplace, like Michael's like arts and crafts or whatever.
Really?
Yeah, I
Oh,
heard that a
interesting.
year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen it come to fruition, but Home Depot has a marketplace. Macy's has a marketplace. I mean, like that's
Yeah.
other there
Target.
too. Yeah, exactly. There's other channels to
Yeah.
pursue than just one. And really what we do is just kind of dig in and understand what's the best channels to move into that matches the brand, basically the brand story and brand promise. So
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe not every third party marketplace is a fit for you. Like I'm thinking about some
now,
of our brands. Walmart doesn't necessarily do that for us as far as, values and mission and all of that kind of stuff. But
that's right.
basically everybody else does. So, and that's unfortunately, I mean, that's just the way that consumers view things in my mind. So that's probably one of the reasons why we would stay away
Yeah.
from there. But tons of brands can go, I mean, get into Walmart. Like
Yeah.
it's incredible, right? It's absolutely incredible. What
No,
else are you looking at, Chris?
yeah, well, we're looking at, I mean, look, the other functions, look, yeah, infrastructure, HR, it's important. I mean, again, if I'm going
Yeah.
to take the company out to go through a process and a buyer looks at this and says, a private equity fund looks at this company and says, wow, there's a lot of rock stars in this company and they're all willing to stay on. If
Yeah.
I buy this, they'll stay on. The owner is willing to roll equity and stay on as well. Like I'm
Mm,
buying infrastructure. Well, you just mitigated my risk.
yeah.
And the people who actually put the plan together will want to stay on to see the plan towards some level of fruition. Wow, that's awesome. So that's important. You've got to think through that infrastructure. You don't want to bloat the company with people, but you want to do the Jim Collins thing, man. Right people on the bus, wrong people off the bus, and right people,
Yeah.
right seats. And some of those seats
Yeah.
are occupied by service providers too. That's also part of
Oh
infrastructure.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I,
core businesses, that's one of the most important pieces is having the right service providers in this.
totally. I wanted to tell you a little story here that has something to do with this to know how incredibly important this is. So we were struggling with one of our companies. I'm not going to tell you which one it was, but we were just having some really big internal struggles and performance was down. We were about a third of where we needed to be from an ARR standpoint or from an MRR standpoint, just was not working. And so we cut our team down from 15 down to 4
Wow.
and we just started all over. I was like, no, wrong people, everybody out. And if you
Yeah.
guys know me, I'm just too nice. I've been too nice over the years. And so I just allow, you tolerate all this behavior and you're just like, I was like, you know what? No more. And so we got rid of basically everybody, built back up. I was on a staff meeting this morning with them and I looked at the team and I was like, we're back to 16 people. Holy cow. And all of them are the right people. This is incredible.
Right.
And so it's so difficult, but so needed, right?
That's
Like
right.
this is a company I want an exit out of in the next little while, and we weren't going to be able to do it there. And
No, and now you will, I mean, look, the right team, we could talk for days about the right team, but I mean, look, it's even down to, we're working with a client right now. We just recently helped find and secure a director of marketing. And, it's even little things like that where the business owner just doesn't know where to turn. They don't have the right resources to find the right people. We were
Yeah.
interviewing for this particular director of marketing position. We were interviewing people that came from Lazy Boy and Little Caesars and Swatch and Crown and Caliber and, Lego and all these amazing, great. I mean, yes, they are more enterprise, but still they had just unbelievable skill sets and acumen. And the
Yeah.
particular business owner did not know how to find those people. And it's not like we just, again, we're not some gatekeeper. We don't have some secret sauce. We have really strong resources to help the business owner find something that's within reach, but then also interviewing those people. Like we know how to just get right to the punchline because we've analyzed hundreds and thousands of businesses and we know the right person for that particular seat too. So I'm
Totally.
getting
Yeah.
really granular in that particular function. But to your point, I love that. I think you just articulated it through an actual story. It's really important to make sure you've got the right team in place because that's an
Yeah.
asset. The right team is a huge asset. And it will, no question, it increases the valuation of your business.
Yeah, totally. The one thing that I'm thinking about that you haven't mentioned yet, and I'm sure you would mention, but that person at the top, whoever that is, and to me also one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in the last year, which has been a really difficult year, guys, in just in business in general. But one of the biggest things that I've learned is that flat leadership does not work. There has to
No.
be one person at the top that everybody answers to and is setting the vision. Without that, no one knows what to do, right? No one knows what the vision of the company is. And so that person needs to be, it can only be one. I do not believe in the dual CEO role. I don't think it works. I mean, maybe it worked for Netflix, maybe, it just, to me, there has to be that one person that everybody answers to that is setting an incredible vision for your employees. That is what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I mean, the best leaders you'll ever meet are the leaders who maybe haven't sold the company yet. The company is 25, 20 million, and they have enough humility to go, I've got to find the right leader for the business. Like I know how to hit
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
here. And that's usually
Yeah.
actually the inflection point. And I wouldn't, I'm not going to use the term a lot, but we've talked to some business owners that are at that point and they're like, hey, I need to either sell my business or I want to find somebody else. And we talk that through with them. Like, what does that really look like? But that's usually, the company usually hits an inflection point for the one who started the business. I need to get out. We're working with another client now that's like, once this thing reaches 10 million, and it's probably going to reach 10 million run rate in the next, call it 6 months, he's like, I know I'm not the guy. Like, I know it.
Yeah.
Like I need
Yeah.
to either sell or I've got to bring in a CEO or a pretty
Yeah.
strong leader here. You bring up a great point, man. That's a really, really good point for sure. As far as like having that person driving the vision,
Yeah.
driving like, this is where we're going. It's a good point. So yeah, and final thing, look, operations, we dig in. Ops, supply chain is an asset now. And
Yeah. Yeah.
thanks to COVID, it's a massive asset. So it's just really, that's more technical in nature. There's not a whole lot of strategic thinking other than when you're dealing with suppliers. That's the most strategic part of supply chain. And there's a, founder owners that we've worked with for the majority have struggled to negotiate with their suppliers, have struggled to build relationships, like the right relationships with their suppliers.
Yeah.
Being in different countries require different types of kind of cultural relationships and getting over certain cultural barriers, like China, which is of course majority of manufacturing. We have a lot of owners that have never even been there before, never even met their supplier,
Mm,
never even traveled there. And that's a big
yeah.
detriment to the company. It's a big culture on relationship and you can get so much further by just getting a plane ticket. It's well worth the investment and spending time with your supplier. So yeah, supplier is probably the biggest kind of strategic point or benefit to the supply chain. So
Awesome. Chris, before we get into the last few questions that I've got for you, where can people connect with you? And also, who's the
yeah,
ideal person? If somebody's listening to this and it's, kind of tugging on their heartstrings a little bit, thinking
yeah,
like, I think I'm looking at an exit in the next few years. Like,
yeah.
who are those ideal people to potentially just at least have a conversation with you?
Yeah, I mean, look, most people who are listening to this podcast, I assume, are consumer product, business owners, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we only work with consumer products. I'm not even going to give a caveat. Like we used to do a little bit in SaaS, very little. We used to do some in very little in agency. Never sold an agency, but we dabbled in talking to a few agency owners. We only do consumer products, and so that's our strong suit. That's our skill set. We're very very good with consumer products. If your business is at a level where you're doing, we'll just use the proverbial seven figures, but more like 2, 3 million. Let's start having a conversation. And at the very, 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 very worst, which is actually still good, we've got a lot of really strong resources we can make introductions to, and at
Totally.
least kind of just have some, what I would consider more or less altruistic discussions about the current state of your company, and maybe just give you some advice on what you need to do next. Our ideal client, though, is someone who's about the 5 to 7 million of revenue. They've gotten to a place where they're like, okay, I really would love to understand what my plan towards an exit actually looks like. Like, what's
Totally.
my full 12 to 24-month plan? I want to get people who can give me answers to the test as early as possible. I want to affect the value of my business. I want to juice it for as much as I can, and I want to go to market at the right time. Five to
Yeah.
7 million consumer products. That's usually our biggest strike zone. And they're seeing growth. They just need strategic resources. They need some help to really kind of figure out the next step to go from 5 to 7 to 20, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah. And on our side, interestingly, we love working with those companies too. Those are like
Exactly.
our
Well,
favorite things
that's why
when
we get along so well. That's
and
right.
and like we love when brands that work with us get exits. It's like that's just the greatest. Like
It's huge,
I
man.
absolutely love that.
It's
Yeah.
huge. It's the one of the largest liquidity events. And the average is you only do it once, like one big one. That is
Yeah.
the kind of historical average, one exit. And usually that one exit it can go from life changing to generational wealth. I mean,
Wow.
that's a big event. That's a very big event
Yeah.
for a lot of people. So yeah, it's fun, man. Fun to watch. Fun to be a part of.
Yeah. Absolutely. Chris, I'm going to ask you the question I ask everyone who comes on the podcast. What is your secret to scaling?
What's my secret to scaling? Oh gosh. Product development, focus on product development. Product is king,
Yeah.
man. I can't say it enough. Product is stinking king. And I'd say right next to that, focus on your brand. Do some really, really, really do some better digging. Do some vision questing and
Yeah.
really dig in harder on your brand and make sure you really know who your brand is trying to reach and what it represents. It irons out a lot of problems you run into with marketing and scaling when it comes to like being the technician on, spending more on creative for Facebook. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I can spend more because I know who I'm trying to reach and what they
Yeah.
like the best. And my brand represents this. That's where we've seen brands go like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. Chris, thank you so much for your time
thank
today.
you,
Guys,
man.
remember, of course, as always, everything that Chris and I have talked about will be down in the show notes. We're going to throw his email address down there. So it's going to be scraped by a bunch of bots and he's just going to get a ton of emails. That's going to be awesome.
Can't
But
wait.
seriously, guys, really recommend if you guys are thinking about an exit in the next, 1 to 3 years, highly, highly recommend getting a hold of Chris. Again, Chris isn't a sponsor, just a good friend here. And we love to work together on lots of these projects. And I'm just honored to get to work on these projects alongside of you because it's so incredible. It is life changing for people. Like we said
It
before,
is.
it's incredible. So any parting words or ways that people can connect with you, Chris?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think you know us by now. There's no way we would ever pitch anybody. If anybody that's listening just has any type of questions across all the different functions that we discuss, please let's just chat. Like we're happy. We're just
Yeah.
happy to help. Genuinely. So
Yeah.
that's my parting words.
Well, thanks so much for your time today, Chris.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.